Hello and welcome again to another episode of One Starfish, where our mission is to change the world one starfish or one person at a time. As always, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, share, all the good stuff. That's how we get the word out. I'm really excited for our guest today, Cameron. I just met him today, and he's already telling me some of his story. The young guy's in IT. He's also helping Americans Live Free is I believe the name of it, Boldly Free American. And doing some amazing stuff there. So we'll touch on that. We'll touch on a lot of stuff, it sounds like, today. So you guys will get a lot of value, and you'll definitely want to make sure you share this episode. So thank you so much for being on. Really appreciate your time.
Awesome. I appreciate you having me, and I always love to provide value where I can. So yeah, like she said, my main company is an IT firm. So most of the work that we do is for like bigger companies like Staples, Walmart, Jimmy John's, all the fast food chains, McDonald's, AT&T and stuff. And so we travel all over, do all the cabling, all the networking, all the security, stuff like that. And usually and then basically I have Boldly Free, which is more of a passion project. Same with Consult ROI. Both are kind of my way of giving back and teaching the skills that I've learned. Because when I was in the thick of it, I literally thought I was the only one that thought the way I do. I thought I was the only one that did business. Nobody I knew owned a company. Nobody I knew was independent or anything. And a lot of people I've found and that just don't, like, they want to change their life, they want to better themselves, but they just don't necessarily know where to look or where to start. And so I try to break down a lot of the skills that I've built, and that because again, I came from nothing. I was always very, very poor growing up. And I've worked my butt off for every single thing. I had parents that if they even loaned me $5, they held it over my head for 10 years, even after I paid it back. So I've learned very quickly to do it on my own and be independent. But yeah, I, I obviously we can get into kind of what you were saying, like the successes and failures. I've been rich, I've been poor, everything in between. I had to get over, a lot of people think that money will solve your problems. No, it really doesn't. It's an accelerator. Money is a fuel to either better your life or make it worse. And so whatever you have in your life currently, it will add more of. So if you have a lot of crap going on in your life, it will give you more crap. I hate to tell you. And granted, I also have this like weird stigma that I had to get over, and I think it's pretty common in more of the Christian communities. But I always had that stigma that money is the root of all evil, and so I thought by having money, I was evil. That's not that's not how it works. But it's what I really truly believed at that time, and so really a lot of the companies I built, especially being younger, was more to prove a point to somebody that told me that I could never be anything, that I could never achieve this, I could never accomplish that goal. And so I would do it. You have to prove them wrong. But once I accomplished it, then I would never get the validation from it. And so I didn't really care. Like the money, what didn't really matter. I'd shut it down and move on. And so I think that the biggest key for a lot of success that people really need to realize is that you kind of have to address all the demons out of your closet, or the dead bodies that are stuffed in your walls that you don't want to address, and that, but there's clearly a stench in your home, because the stench is kind of the results. It's the brain tells, it's the excuses that we make in our life for why we haven't done something, why we haven't accomplished. Because at the time, if you listen to me or anything, you're just like, they would ask, well, why did you just give away your company? Why did you do this? Why, you were doing really well, why would you do that? And then my answer literally every time was, I don't know. I don't know. And that's that brain block, or that wall off. Just like, hey, I really don't want to address the dead bodies in the wall.
Mm-hmm.
There's clearly a stench there. There's clearly something that is unresolved in my life. But that's kind of how it was manifesting itself, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I quickly realized, especially after I had kids, and I've started business at literally at every stage of my life. So being a single young guy to being married to um, being or having kids to being a single father even, and all the way back, and having to handle that full time plus that and all these other stresses and that. And each business or each phase that you start in is drastically different on how you approach things. But there is a couple of universal principles that you use regardless, like mind mapping. Um, because if you just get in a car, for example, and never put in a destination into your GPS, how the heck do you ever expect to get where you're going? And most people's excuse is like, well, I just don't know where I want to go. I don't know anything. I'm like, well, you can at least pick a direction.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather be a millionaire or broke? Well, I'd rather be a millionaire. Okay, great. So that's one direction. We already have a direction there. Now, what are we talking about? What's your hobbies? What do you enjoy? What do you want to accomplish? And literally just paint it out. And I was like, okay, great. You actually do know your destination. Now you just need to start taking actionable steps towards that goal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sometimes it is having a reality check, because again, when you go to a destination, especially if you're traveling across country, there's a good chance that you will come across construction and detours and have flat tires and all these other accidents or other stuff that will come up along your path, or things that you need to do to go get fuel or to get work done or whatever it may be, right?
Mm-hmm.
um, but that's okay, because you can address it at those points in your life. People, I think, get so caught up in the thick of it that they're like, hey, I need to know the answer of every single actionable step along my whole journey before I even get there. No, you just need to have some basic things in your life, and that basic preparations, basic resourcefulness, to know that, like, I could literally leave in my car right now with nothing in it, no tools, no nothing and that, but I know for a fact that I'd be able to fix anything that comes in because I'm very resourceful. And it's a very simple mindset shift. It sounds simple in theory, but in reality and practice, it's very hard, because our brain and that voice in our heads naturally wants to talk down to us. It wants to be condescending to us. It wants to give you excuses. It wants to give you an escape, um, and tell you that you're not good enough, that it's okay to take the easy road out. Oh, my life sucks. You're horrible. You're a failure and everything. Nobody loves you, blah, blah, blah. Like, that voice is not your friend. So mastery of that voice, frankly, is the biggest key I feel to any success in life. That's where mental discipline, that's where challenges, programs, even like 75 hard is very vital. And that they each do it in different ways, but and there's a lot of different ways that people are able to overcome it. But reality is things in your life will also not change until you get to the point in your life where you say enough is enough.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I will not tolerate this level of life any longer. I'm not going to settle for mediocrity, because whatever is in your life right now is, you have it because you were willing to settle for it, because you were willing to tolerate it. That holds true to your business. That holds true to the relationships that you have in your life. It holds true in literally every aspect of your life. So, but anyway, I know that's a long-winded kind of answer, but a lot of this content you can find for free, and that I obviously do a podcast that's absolutely free as well. There's great podcasts like Angela's here that you can use as resourceful, right? There's Real AF. There's all these other tools and resources that, and I think it's also easy to get into that listening I call it analysis paralysis, which
Mm-hmm.
is again having to need that whole roadmap before you even get started. You're doing the same thing when you listen to 500 podcasts like this.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're listening to this, um, that's one challenge I would have for you. Like, I have nothing to gain from you right now and
Mm-hmm.
everything at all. Like, I don't need you as an IT client. I don't need you to support our causes. While I appreciate it and everything, appreciate you supporting our cause to protect or preserve life, liberty, and pursue happiness, or all these other things. Reality is, I don't need it. I'm here because I love to pour value into people and to help them. And that's really my selfish desire, if you will, is to leave a legacy behind. It's like, hey, there's something that resonated with me, that I was able to take an actionable step, and that moment changed my life. And not only did it change my life, it changed the whole trajectory of my entire lineage and everybody I'm associated with. So again, that's one thing that you can do right now is like, hey, I'm going to map out exactly how I want my life, and I'm going to at least do an actionable step that I can do every single day, regardless, and just start at that, and start little goals, like micro goals, and that you can do. You don't climb a mountain and that all at once. You climb it one step at a time. So just focus on that next step in front of you. As you do that, you will also build confidence and mental self-esteem. And that, so next time and anytime you get to that obstacle, you can look back and be like, well, I've already taken all these steps. I can take a few more, right? That becomes the bread and butter and your validation for you being a good person and everything. But if you can't even hold yourself accountable to simple things like, hey, I will get a small workout done today, or I will get that task list done and everything to make sure that I can get all these tasks for my business or my personal life or my career done this week, and I'll at least knock out 2 of them today and 2 every single day, and I'm not going to go to bed until I at least get 2 off that list. And hold yourself accountable, because if you don't hold yourself accountable, what's going to happen is you'll slip more into depression because you can't even trust yourself. So why on earth then should anybody else trust you? Like, ask yourself that. That's a hard conversation. Looking in the mirror is never fun.
So what were some of the catalysts that got you from where you are or where you were to where you are? And what do you feel the catalysts are to get you to the next level?
It's kind of like saying which ingredient made the cake. They all come together really to make or bring in fruition, and that there's a certain number of steps, right? And depending on the quality of ingredients, what you actually put into it and everything else, and the time and that, there's a lot of factors that go into actually making sure that the cake comes out and it tastes good, right? The first time you ever bake a cake, probably is not going to, unless you're following a recipe for somebody else. And so one big catalyst is like, I could follow, when I was younger, right, I didn't necessarily have this skill, but the quickest catalyst for you wanting to find success, especially now, is following people that have already done it, following their recipe book.
Mm-hmm.
It's the quickest way to know you're going to actually bake a great cake, right? Or have the most likelihood of doing that. But if you just try to figure it out, throw things together, it's very unlikely unless you already have some of the fundamental skills. You've been through the ringer, you've had to be scrappy and everything. Like, I was successful really because I had no option. Like, failure wasn't an option because failure meant death. That was the reality. So if I didn't get work, or if I didn't find a job, or if I didn't find a client or anything, or if I didn't do a good job and they decided not to pay me, I didn't eat that day. Like, that was a harsh reality. And so I had to figure that out. I had to be resourceful. I had to, and so that's, it comes down to, I had to ask myself every single day, how can I find a solution to this problem instead of more problems? Because again, that voice in your head is always asking you or trying to give you an excuse. Oh, I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm not asking myself anymore, why can't I do something? I'm asking how I can do that. So that is by far the best catalyst in any aspect of your life. Stop asking you why you can't, what obstacles are stopping you. I don't have enough time. Oh, the kids are doing this, or oh, I can't do, like, all these things are out against me. Oh, I had somebody leave me a negative review. Oh, like, the list goes on and on. If you want to find excuses, you'll find it all day long. But you can also find 50, 100 things in that says, hey, I can accomplish that because I am going to figure out a way to make sure that I can get this time block, whether that is giving myself some space in that to make it to where I can think clearly from the kids for 2 seconds, or whether I'm going to have them to complete a specific task or stay disciplined on it, or hey, you know what? This day in that I've kind of destroyed or something, I've let things go to heck, and let me figure out a way that I can deploy a better routine. So that's how I'm going to be able to do something moving forward, is putting in a better routine that both me and the kids can follow in and can both feel appreciated, to where they can get the need and attention that they need, and I can get the stuff that I need to accomplish to pay bills and to get things done. Right. So how can I do that? And just finding that solution, a lot of times it's a lot simpler than you think. Again, creating routines, creating consistency. You don't get in shape by doing one workout. You do it by consistently at least 3, 5 times a week, right? To work out and stay consistent, and then also make sure that you are at least not either overeating or undereating. It's really not hard. If you really break down the steps in that, now you could be like, well, you need to have all these different specific foods and everything else. But in general, it's like, hey, as long as I know, like, for example, for me, I know that if I keep my calories around 3,000 calories, I know that I work out at least 3 times a week. I know that between that and the fact that I have a fairly physical job, and the fact that I've done that consistently, I stay in relatively good shape. Now, if I go outside of that, if I start getting stressed, I start not prioritizing, I don't eat for a full day, not only does my fitness suffer, but my mental capacity suffers, because I can't focus. I can't get, like, my brain and body doesn't work as well as it can. So and that was my biggest excuse for a long time, even in my fitness, right? It's not like I don't have these voices either. I used to have, I still have some of these, and that I'll catch in. I've gotten really good at catching that voice and being like, shut up, like, get out of my head. I need to focus on this and that, and you're holding me back from something. So I'd be like, hey, I don't have enough time. Like, I'm running several companies. I have all these fires I need to put out. I do not have time to do my workout and that. But yet, when I prioritize my fitness, when I prioritize my mental health, when I prioritize all these things, and just take that 40 minutes to hour out of my day, that actually helps me be more effective and execute further on all my other goals. So even though I technically had less time, I actually had more of it because I was able to do every single task more effectively. Make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, let's go way, way back, because I'm curious. What was your childhood like?
um, Reality is, like, it wasn't great, right? It wasn't anything to write home about. Came from a very contentious, poor background in that, with two parents that hated each other. That should have got divorced a long time ago and didn't. And then usually the kids ended up being a scapegoat for a lot of that unresolved generational trauma, is what I call it. And I don't need to get into details of that, but it is unfortunate. And each of us in our own lives have been handed a load of baggage and a lot of issues that have been passed down by our parents, and that, whether they were a good parent or a bad parent, there's still good and bad stuff that they will pass down. One thing I learned, especially from my father, is he's very good work ethic. But I also learned the balance of that because I understood that he put work above anybody, anything. And that, I mean, my dad didn't even know that I played guitar or violin for 3 years. Like it's stuff like that. It's like he was not involved whatsoever. And so, like I learned, honestly, even though it came from a bad thing, I hate getting pity for it, because really those instances and that experiences is what gave me a better appreciation on how to do things and how not to do things, and how I can show up better for my kids, or how I can be a better example, or how I can thrive, and how and I'll sometimes catch myself in that, like slipping over to some of the things they did, and I can snap myself like, hey, you didn't appreciate that. It didn't have a good outcome when you were a kid. Like, why are you doing that? So taking full accountability and saying, hey, I don't care what crap was handed to me. I can determine what stops with me. I can determine what moves forward as well. And so they are no longer accountable for anything else, right? I'm an adult. I can make these choices, and the buck stops with me. So
Totally. That's awesome. And explains a lot. So that's good. For anyone listening, our past doesn't define our future, but it does shape our future. And we can allow to what degree it shapes it, but it does shape it. And a lot of our subconscious comes from obviously our childhood. We're heavily programmed as a child. And so there's a lot of programming to come out, not a blaming, but a fact of knowing where you come from is really helpful to know where you're going and what you need to work through to get there, which is awesome. And you're definitely on that path. That was a lot of great stuff. So we keep these pretty short relatively. We always have 3 final questions, but then anything you want, you just think the listeners really need to listen to. I feel like there's something more you want to share. So we'll wrap up with that. But 3 final questions is, if someone's looking for their purpose, what's one sentence you would say that could help them find it?
one sentence, huh? I mean, I think we've all been lost. Again, a lot of the generational trauma that I refuse to address, the dead bodies in my closet and everything, if you will, were the need to prove or create validation, or have to validate myself to everyone. And so it was almost a pride thing, to where nothing, like I just always had to prove myself and be worthwhile in that. So your purpose usually does stem, or your why, if you will, usually stems from a very horrific point of your life, a trauma that you've walled off, that you've refused to address. But so like, for example, for me, my why is I want to enable or help people to overcome things, and to be able to, so long story short, step back in that, because my kids are starting to come in, and so it derailed me. But if you are looking at your life, right? My why really became, how can I enable people to where they never feel as helpless or insignificant as I felt?
So find your pain point and find your purpose from that. Number 2 question, what's a favorite quote and why?
Your life is determined by the actions you take today.
That makes sense. I like it. And 3rd and final question, what's one word or sentence you would like on your gravestone?
Always gave more than he took.
Good. I like it. So you run into someone in a coffee shop and they're like, hey, Cameron, that was awesome. Like, I got to work on my mindset and to do all these things. What's something we didn't touch on that you just think we really need to, tell our listeners?
I mean, I've really taught everything that you really need to really be successful, because every one of us wants to find that magical pill that will do all the workouts for us, the magical pill to take all the pain and the generational trauma, all the hurt that's been done to us by our parents, by our spouse, by friends, by all these other people, right? There is no magical pill. Everything requires work. It requires effort. And refusing to address it is no different than letting a wound fester and getting infected, because it hurts every time you touch it. So you're not going to want to touch it. You're not going to want to address it. You're not going to want to deal with it. But eventually the pain gets so much, the rot gets spread so far through your body that you're like, I can't not address it anymore. So I just challenge you guys to not let the rot spread, to recognize it immediately and immediately cut it out so it doesn't become a bigger issue in your life. Take those steps right now, regardless what that is. And I can't be the one that decides what that is or looks like for you. But I can show you, like, hey, how this is the roadmap that you can create for your life, the template for your life. This is how you can be successful, like in any field. Like I have, again, several companies in several different industries. The principles for success is universal. It's not hard, but what is hard is finding motivation that you will never find. Motivation is frankly a load of horseshit. You will never be motivated to do things that you don't want to do. But what can be motivating is, you know, that you can work towards something to where I can now delegate that. Like I hated accounting. I'm good with numbers. I'm good with those stuff, but I hated doing all the financials, all the paperwork, all that stuff. And that. So guess what? When I scaled my company, that was my motivation and fuel. It's like, hey, if I can get to this amount of cash flow, I can hire a bookkeeper. I can hire an office manager. Now I don't have to deal with that. That was my motivation. It's as simple as that.
That's good. I love it. Find your motivation, guys. You know what it is that it drives you. And I agree, motivation doesn't drive, discipline does. So what do you want and what are you willing to do to get it? I believe is a little bit what Cameron's talking about, and figure out what are your roadblocks in order to prevent you from
put it a lot more eloquent than I did.
Just different. So guys, let's go out there. I know you'll want to share this. Let's go out there. Let's share this. Let's go out there and change one life or one starfish at a time. If we change one life at a time together, we can change the world. Thank you so much, Cameron.